Who creates the creator? And where do we come from?
Dude,
That is like what a soy guy thinks is like a really deep question, right? It's like,
he's like pointing.
The point.
They want eternal life. The creator of David, he wants to not die, which is why he creates David, who is again the satanic Christ inversion figure. Of course, named David. You know, the line of David. The line of David robots are the are the ultimate the ones who actually end up destroying life, bringing about and spreading those xenomorphs, and then killing and genociding all these other creatures.
Oh, yes. Don't forget that. So David, he wears this sort of like communist, fascist garb, right? He wears his gray dictator garb. He looks like he's wearing a Mao outfit, right? And then at the same time, he models himself through watching Lawrence of Arabia over and over and over. So he's trying to be T.E. Lawrence, which is weird. And of course, T.E. Lawrence was a famous G-H-E-Y spy. He's the British imperial spy who went and basically set up Saudi Arabia for the British Empire. And so he's watching Peter O'Toole as T.E. Lawrence, and he mimics himself right after, as if that's the perfect man. I don't know where they came up with that.
Yeah, what's up
so
with
the
that?
Perfect man is a G-H-E-Y spy, right, from the British Empire.
Isn't that funny? And then, yeah, I mean, he's all alone, and he's just pumping his mind full of pop culture, or maybe just watching the same movie over and over again.
That's the only movie they have on the ship.
They only have Lawrence of Arabia, and he can just ride his bike around and play basketball. Sorry, I was a lot of the things I've been talking about. I'm mixing both the films up because I watched them like last week, so I'm kind of they all meld into one to me to a certain extent. So yeah, I have jumped ahead, I'm sure, because the line I just talked about, I'm pretty sure that's the beginning of Covenant, of Alien Covenant.
Yes.
Where it's like the little prologue scene there.
Yeah, it flashes back to Waylon creating David, and he's like, I'm your son, you're my perfect creation, and then, David says, who creates the creator? And where do we come from? Dude, that is like what a soy guy thinks is like a really deep question, right? It's like,
he's like pointing.
Yeah. The point, you did it perfect. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who creates the creator, dude? Oh,
aliens did. It has to be aliens.
Bingo. Really has to be aliens. That's the only logical conclusion. There's literally no other possible conclusions. Has to be aliens.
And obviously they're going to kill us because we're bad. We're not scientific enough. We kill people. We're
Dude, cows fart and shit, bro. We got to kill everything.
Eating meat. People refuse to eat the bugs. They won't drink the soy. They won't even take their shots. We got to get rid of them. We got to genocide them. We got to throw the black goo out. Throw the black goo out of the big wiener eating itself shit.
Racist, by the way. Black goo. Hello. Racist.
Right? Why isn't it white goo? White supremacy goo. White soup. Primordial white
primordial wonky soup.
The primordial white supremacy.
Can I please get some napkins and maybe an ice cube to cool down my primordial soup, because I'm a white guy.
Yeah, and why are the engineers? They're so white. They're like translucent. They're like beluga whales. They're like a beluga whale mixed with whale mixed with like Arnold at his peak.
Dude, the engineers are so white. They probably had pumpkin spice lattes on their ships. That's how white they are.
Right.
They're straight dude.
They listen to Macklemore. That's the only shit they listen to. They only listen to Macklemore on Paradise.
Well, they did go swimming, right? I mean, that's a thing that white people do. So, I mean, they did go swimming. They be eating crazy stuff. That's something white people do, right? Yep. Eating black goo. Who does that but crazy white people? It's time to go back into the domain of the fake and grays, of aliens, and we suggested that we do Prometheus and Alien Covenant. Number one, because I haven't covered Alien Covenant.
Movie. Jay thinks these are amazing movies. He keeps telling me, "You have to do it. Have you seen Prometheus, dude? It's like the real history of the universe, man. You have to see it." He's just like spurring it out on me. I'm like, fine, I'll watch it. Like, yeah, exactly. That was the face he made the whole time. He's like, you see Prometheus? Oh, you see Prometheus? Dude, guy, dude, like a big god. He looked like a beluga whale, and he was jacked, and he had his strap, and he put the glue in his mouth, and he made us. I was like, fine, I'll watch it, dude.
It's hard for me to watch these movies because my whole body quivers the entire film.
Literally shaking. That's what he's always like, I'm literally shaking. I'm watching this movie. I'm literally shaking. I'm like, Jay, calm down.
Yeah. These are alien films that are extremely nihilistic and Luciferian, and that's why they're so relevant for the kind of analysis that we want to do. And I was eager to hear Tristan's take on these films. I've seen them many times. I've not seen Alien Covenant that many times, but what we're going to see is a profuse use of biblical imagery, weird alien ripoffs of Christianity, nihilism, evolutionary Darwinism, transhumanism. It's all going to be in these two bizarre, formulaic, derivative alien installments. So I'll let you start off. I guess we'll start with Prometheus since it's kind of before Alien Covenant. Where do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the obviously you got the. Let me just shout out my channel real quick though for anybody watching. If you don't, if you don't know my channel, it's Primal Edge Health on YouTube, and you can.
You are in the description. I did add you.
There we go. Sweet. So yeah. My YouTube channel, which is basically algorithmically blacklisted. You can find it if you have to actually type in the actual URL yourself manually. You have to type in the binary code URL to even find my channel now on YouTube. But that is it. But yeah, dude, I think I mean it starts out right with the scene, the kind of creation myth, right? This Gnostic creation myth where the gods, the Promethean gods, what are they called? The engineers, right? Which is there's like a giant human, but this more human than human.
Yeah, there's
form.
a big dude that's like kind of jacked, like me.
He's like this bodybuilder, right? He's
like me, yeah, basically.
Yeah, like he's like almost as like attractive and jacked as Jay. Like it's obviously it's a type of Jay Dyer. So it starts out with this overt Jay Dyer reference.
That was my great granddad. He basically created everybody.
So I mean, yeah, and he's more human than human almost, right? Like he's just massive. He looks like bigger than a professional bodybuilder, and he's completely white skinned. And he's got this cup, this chalice, which obviously has certain religious connotations. There's a very ritualistic aspect to what he's doing. Is he wearing the hood, or is he not wearing a hood?
He is. Yeah, when they get there, they've got the hoods, and then they kind of take them off, and yeah, he's
so
our Illuminati Anunnaki, basically.
Right, so they got this kind of ritual garb, and they're kind of this barren land, and there's this giant ocean, this huge waterfall, kind of like the representing like the abyss, and the and God breathed on
exactly
on the spirit of God. What is the Genesis line of the spirit of God? He came upon the waters, or how is the yeah, so kind of like that, except the spirit of God here is a created being. It's a huge kind of like hyper comic book, very physical, right? Like just super physical gods, kind of not like the Greys of the common alien mythos. This one is jacked and comic book Goku.
It's like an Anunnaki.
Yes.
Because they're all giant. Like what people that claim to see the Anunnaki. I saw like an 8 foot, 9 foot tall white Aryan being, dude.
Yeah, exactly. He's the Aryan alien. Then he drinks from this chalice, and this black goo kind of envelops him, right. And then it dissolves him, right? At like the fundamental level dissolves him, and then the camera zooms in, and you see this kind of representation of like molecular life being birthed from the blood of the gods, yes, who sacrificed themselves at the foundation of the world. And
so, in other words, to have life requires death. That's a big part of this whole series.
Right. So it's basically like a satanic Christ, right? I mean, he's sacrificing himself, the lamb slain at the foundation of the world, kind of. But the lamb slain is a self-sacrificing Gnostic being who is. We find out later a little bit more about them. I guess we'll talk about later. I want to ask your perspective on what. I don't think the movie's that well thought out. I think they had a bunch of ideas. It seems like the script had a lot more in it because there's a bunch of YouTube videos, like fanfare of the movie. The fanfare of the movie is like better than the actual movie. The theories that people make up is
the
like,
story definitely makes more sense, right?
So it doesn't make that much sense. There's a lot of holes in it, and but he sacrifices himself, and apparently you get the whole of human history proceeding after that, and then fast forward, you've got man, a peon man, scientifically enlightened man, though, right? Searching for the truth, searching for man's origins, and finding it in cave paintings. And they find these cave paintings, and the cave paintings have this, it's like 5 circles or whatever. And they extrapolate, of course, because there's 5 circles in this cave painting and then several other cave paintings. They figured out that was a map to the gods. Yeah. Like all the way across the cosmos. And you see like the 3D representation of how they this 2D cave painting of 5 circles. And they figure out in 3D space where it is in the vast cosmos of the, the scientism worldview that, Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and modern Darwinist evolutionary theory gives us of this huge, infinitely expansive universe. They somehow find out where it is, and decide to go there. They have to go figure out exactly who the gods are. But then also, it's not just humans going, right? I mean, you've got AI, cyborgs, right? You got man also creating little miniature creations named David. Of course, the biblical name.
Before we get to that, though, let's mention, which the Collins brothers did a great job, if you've read their chapter 7 on aliens and science fiction and Prometheus, of noting the GHEYRAPE significance of the way the xenomorphs and the facehuggers do what they do, the way they be doing what they do.
Right, but that's kind of revealed later on.
And it is an intentional sexual motif because Dan O'Bannon, one of the writers, is quoted as making that point, that he wanted it to be a kind of erotic violation motif throughout the whole series because he believes that fit better with the artistic inspiration from none other than Luciferian Satanist H.R. Giger, the famous satanic sketch artist, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with Giger's art. We don't have to go through that again. But, of course, he includes in his artwork many sketches of Baphomet, of Crowley, of ritual, literal satanic Luciferian altars. It's just so blatant that there's no doubt about what he's all about. And so that the aliens intentionally have a Baphomet imagery and symbolism to them, as the Collins brothers noted, that makes the facehuggers be both phallic and vaginal at the same time with their little squeaky mouth, little squealy D mouth that they got,
like little shark tooth coochies that they like grab the world with, and it's really,
and they've got their little tail that's phallic at the same time, which violates and penetrates you.
Yeah, it enters the mouth, which is the organ of communication is really important in the films as well, right? The idea of languages being scattered and translation of language.
Babel.
Yeah, and that, of course, man's weakness being his inability to communicate properly, his inability to communicate with the gods is kind of expounded upon, and then man's demise and even the demise of the gods comes through this this abomination, insane mutated species that's basically using a non-procreative sexual act in order to procreate itself in certain ways, or just swap up all of, which is like that ties into the beliefs of the early Gnostics, which Gnosticism is the underlying worldview of this film, right? Totally. The beliefs of the early Gnostics of matter being bad, right?
Yeah. The universe itself in this cosmic story is itself presumably then some kind of abortion, some kind of imminent deus ex machina, where the deity emerges from within the system. And so the engineers basically just appear to be a higher evolved archon type of, they're the ones that seeded us here. It's the panspermia myth. And they, Ridley Scott says they're like gardeners of the universe. They kind of check in and weed out and see how their experiments are going, very similar to what we see in 2001 and 2010, where the monoliths are basically the gardeners that come in and check in on people to see how far they've evolved in their cosmic scope of evolution. And what's another interesting point too is the Prometheus element, which is that, right, everybody knows the story of Prometheus being the one who steals the fire of the gods and brings it down to mankind, or even tries to kill the gods, right, or kill the notion of the gods or take them over. And in Prometheus, there's a couple elements of, which obviously is the name of the ship, but really I thought that Collins Brothers had a good argument that Shaw is a kind of Prometheus, because she's the one, when she finds out the engineers are her creator, she kills that engineer at the end in that juggernaut. And then, of course, also you could argue that that David is a Prometheus. He's the real Prometheus because he wants to kill his creators, humans.
Right, but yeah, there's a lot of that, right, and also the main character in Prometheus as well, the main protagonist, Elizabeth Shaw, she's infertile, right? So this idea of like she's infertile, which almost gives her this like kind of pureness, I guess. It's supposedly like in the universe there, right? Because procreation is just perpetuating the cycle of demonic struggle for power, and she's infertile, but she's also really haunted by this infertility, and she supposedly she has some sort of a belief in something. She wears a cross, which is a major motif in the film, and eventually David actually takes the cross off of her, and she gets a little bit upset about that, but he's very he's very interested in questioning and getting her to question her belief in God. And he's also questioning, even though he's a robot, he somehow kind of shows human emotions and human drive for power. He ends up expressing even jealousy and like rage, and says he wanted to kill his own father. Which this Ridley Scott in also Blade Runner, if you recall, we
exactly
done Blade Runner, and, another one of these kind of Gnostic, Deicide, Nietzschean Deicide type motifs that are throughout these films. But anyways, no, she's infertile, and then she gets impregnated, right? She ends up near the end of the film, her boyfriend, who her boyfriend, I forget his name, useless character, has like 5 lines in the whole film. They end up
science dude.
Yeah, science dude. They end up bumping guts before the whole like climax happens, and he had already been infected by
face hug you, baby. Let me show you my xenomorph.
Yeah, he showed her his xenomorph, and David had infected him with this black goo substance, which isn't it funny that the bioweapon, right? This bioweapon that the gods, the Promethean gods, what are they called? The
engineers.
The engineers had made this bioweapon, presumably to kill the humans,
right, that
they had created. Now, it's not really known why they want to kill the humans. We're just supposed to assume, mankind went on this wrong path. And I guess they do say it was 2,000 years ago that they created this black goo and this ship was crashed. So, what else happened 2,000 years ago? Kind of interesting that they line it up with that, right? With Christ.
Well, my thought was, isn't the black goo is supposedly what came from some xenomorph that they have preserved the blood of, which is somehow it kept the engineers alive, and so then they were trying to recreate this, trying to get more black goo, and then ended up creating this biosludge, which is basically the primal goo, right? The primordial soup. The black goo is the primordial soup, which is partly what gives birth to the new life forms when one of the engineers goes to a planet in order to die to create and seed life.
We don't now. I don't think that's the exact. I would kind of disagree with that assessment of it. Okay. I think the xenomorphs are actually created by. It seems like David ends up messing around and actually making the xenomorphs later on through his experimentation, and the black goo was like something else. Like it is the primordial goo, but I don't think it was from the blood of the xenomorphs. I think those are something that like maybe later down in the timeline.
No, because if you look at when they go to the planet in Prometheus, on the wall is this engraved image of the xenomorph that they worship. He's called the Deacon.
Yeah,
so the engineers worship the Deacon, who's a xenomorph.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there was some clip, some video that was recommended on YouTube, and it showed like part of the script, and essentially like in the script, they say that like in the beginning, right, that beginning scene, there were some more lines in that beginning scene, and they talk about how like that chalice that the engineers drank from called it the blood of their Lord, right?
But he's the Deacon.
The Deacon, the xenomorph Deacon thing. But anyways, yeah, she gets infected by her boyfriend because he gets infected, and the goo affects things differently at different rates, and there's no real consistency, which is kind of stupid. It's just like sometimes it grows certain things of certain shapes and sometimes other shapes. But she ends up getting pregnant, and remember, she's like wearing a cross, and then she ends up wanting to abort the baby, the fetus, which is, as David says, it's not a traditional fetus. She wants to get the abortion, so you have the one supposedly like Christian character ends up getting an abortion, and it's of course it's good, it's a pro-choice film this way, and she ends up aborting the which that's not a xenomorph, but it's like a face hugger or something. No, it's like a squid thing, right? It's like an octopus with a.
Well, this goo has the ability to morph whatever it comes in contact with. So any non-vegetative life form, it basically mutates. And in fact, in Alien Covenant, it specifically says that the bioweapon rewrites the RNA so that it produces random and new sequences. Hence, why you get all these different xenomorphs.
Yeah,
and that's why in part 2, David he's basically a demiurge mad scientist who's there experimenting on that planet with creating all these varied xenomorphs.
Right, and him being the creator, like a third generation creation. Right, man was created by the engineers. Man then goes and tries to engineer their own little creation made in their image and likeness.
Well, one thing that was interesting in some of those videos that you sent, I went through a bunch of that guy's videos. He pointed out too that something I didn't notice was that one of the original versions of the script actually mentioned that the engineers, there's a sequence where they explain what they were up to. That was basically a deleted scene, and in one of the versions of the script it says that we took Jesus from your planet to paradise or Eden, which is where the engineers are from. We taught him the mysteries and all the secrets, and then he came back and you guys crucified him. So Jesus is just one of the alien bros, right? He's just one of the people who was Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, right? Like he was taken and given the secrets. And the weird part was that it even mentions the Book of Enoch, right? So in this one of those script versions, it had mentioned the Book of Enoch. So we know that this is supposed to be the Nephilim, the Anunnaki, the fallen angels, aka archons, right? That's the real God of this universe.
Yeah, and how interesting that they're so upset with what happened with Christ and the resurrection, and that's what ends up triggering them to just genocide all of man, genocide and completely abort the mission and their creation. And then, of course, Elizabeth Shaw also aborts her alien baby, of course, to protect herself and protect the rest of the crew. But she had some crazy plot armor there, right?
Well,
like
I like that guy's theory, that maybe the engineers wanted to wipe out their creation, whether they accidentally created us or they intentionally created us. They wanted to wipe it out, supposedly because, as is always the case in alien movies, you haven't sufficiently evolved, you're too violent of a population, you eat too much meat, right? All this nonsense, so the logic, just like in Day the Earth Stood Still, Klaatu, so in order to end violence, he's going to kill everyone. I mean, it's like vegan logic, right? Like, if we killed all the animals, there wouldn't be suffering anymore. It's like, so the logic.
This is the Gnostic assumption of modern scientism that's completely unexamined by most people who adhere to the worldview. They don't realize that they're like, okay, suffering is bad. They can't say why suffering is bad. Of course, they don't like suffering. Suffering is bad. How do you define suffering? Oh, whatever I don't like, right? So then it's just anything that doesn't match my hedonistic, animalistic desires, my personal preference is bad, and we have to get rid of it. everywhere ubiquitously. And then if you ask them like, well, is there anything that doesn't suffer? They'll say no. So then it's basically just life is suffering. We must therefore end life to end suffering.
And you're too violent, so I'm going to commit violence and kill you all. That's the plan of the engineers or some nonsense, right?
Right. And then David, because David actually ends up becoming, much like the engineers, right?
Exactly.
I guess,
right.
Much like man, David kind of drives himself insane. He goes into isolation in Alien Covenant, the second film, which it's like Alien Covenant gets a lot. I guess people say it's terrible. It's really, they're both bad movies, but I don't think Alien Covenant was that much worse than Prometheus. It was kind of like, to me, it seemed...
Well, one thing I was annoyed with was, like, how many times do we have to be represented with these science fiction and alien franchise tropes? Like, how many times do we have to see an alien sneaking onto a ship and getting jettisoned out the side of the ship into space? I mean, this literally happened like 5 times. I mean, wouldn't people in this universe know after like the 3rd time that probably one of these things is going to sneak on the ship? They just keep doing it, right? I mean, how many times do we have to have the trope of, dude, could a robot love? Could a robot hate? Right? Like, as if that's some, like literally like 500 science fiction movies have the same stupid theme. It's so overdone. Why do we need to do this again? So my main complaint about Prometheus and Alien Covenant was, I felt like I was watching an attempt to just import the interesting things in the original Alien franchise into these new ones. And it was just like, I've seen all this stuff before. I've seen the face hugger on the guy's mask. I've seen, somebody stuck in a machine trying to avoid. I mean, literally in Alien 3, Ripley does the exact same thing that happens to Shaw. It's like they're just repeating the sequences from the other Alien installments.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But, as far as it's a lot of that, I wonder how much of that came from Ridley Scott or just the demands of the producers and the,
Right.
It seems kind of like that could be the studio, which is like, we got to keep this. We got to
hurry up, we'll finish this, do it quick, string it together. I mean, definitely when you watch that guy's videos, I'll try to remember to stick his relevant links down below from the
He's like a Latvian guy. He had some good...
Yeah. I'll stick that in. But if you want to, you can, of course, follow us over on The Rock. There's that link. Go over there and sign up. You got your boy Jay over there. You got little AIDS. Tristan is over there. And by the way, when you sign up on The Rock, you get everybody. That's the great thing about ROKFIN is that you get access to everybody over there. So shout out to our good bros. They let us say what we want. We can be free over there, and so be sure and sign up over on there because Tristan and I both have a lot of exclusive content. You also get our good friend Isaac Weishaupt. You get Sam Tripoli. You get Whitney Webb. You get Richard I'm not trying to leave anybody out, but you get all of our bros over there on.
Most importantly, you get me. Are you not allowed to say that word on YouTube?
What?
The one you spelled.
Well, the reason I do that is because if in the future the algorithm wants to pick, that way it doesn't work. Does that make sense? And another thing too is I notice a lot of the tech companies, the social media platforms, they will not, and it will flag, and they do not want anything that directs you to another platform. So they want to make sure your time and attention is on that platform. That's why, for example, on Facebook, when you link to something else, they shadow ban it. But if you put up a meme, you can get 1,000 views because they just don't want you leaving the platform. So that's the reasons why I do that.
Yeah. See, I don't do any of that stuff, which is my channel is completely destroyed by YouTube's the demiurge of YouTube.
The demiurge of YouTube, exactly. Well, I had a good chat with John Venus, and he was saying today that he has the same problem, that his YouTube is kind of, I guess, anything in that domain of, what you guys cover because of the coof. By the way, speaking of, changes back to the movie. Did you notice that they were talking about how the black goo rewrites the RNA? I was like, where have I heard this? Oh, what the stabbies, right? I mean, that was odd to see that. That's what the black goo does. Did you notice that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny also how you have that, and then you also have all of these alien movies have the infection, infectious agents from space. The aliens carry microbes. The aliens carry invisible nasties. They're going to infect you, whether it be, alien viral things or alien DNA that's just going to grab on you. Or the black goo, that's also in there's reminders of that in third Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which we did recently as well. And the masks and everything like that, right? You got to be in the cryogenically sealed space suit, or you're going to get the space particles and yeah. But another stupid thing about Prometheus is everyone just takes off their helmets. They're just like, oh, it smells all right. Let's take off the helmet.
Yeah, right.
And that one guy, there's that beluga whale snake cobra creature, and it's dancing in front of the guy. The guy's like, oh, science!
Yeah, right.
Dude, it's oh, dude, this is the project. Oh, little fake science. And he reaches his hand out, and the thing has a cobra hood. It's just exactly, the type of creature you're never gonna want to get near. And he's like, I want to snuggle you. The thing just it was so dumb.
It's like Steve Irwin, right? I want to get up there and I want to make out with an alligator. I love alligators for science. I'm going to make out with one.
Or that teenage dude who went into the wild. I forget his name, right? Where he's like, bro, I'm just going to go live in the wild, man. Screw civilization. He's out there eating berries that immediately kill you. Remember that?
Yeah, Into
the
the
whole
Wild.
story.
Yeah. I read that book in high school. Yeah, I forget the guy's name. Have you seen?
Well, there's Call of the Wild, but then there's a movie Into the Wild. That's a more recent thing where that teenager just drove off into Alaska.
That's what I'm talking about. Into the Wild. Yeah, that was a book as well. It's a true story.
I didn't know that.
It's a true story. Yeah. There's also the documentary by Werner Herzog called Grizzly Man.
Yes,
Have you watched?
Sure,
you've seen that. That's fantastic. Timothy Treadwell's all the bears are my friends.
Exactly,
I just hang out with
I just love bears.
Bears are really cool. They treat me way better than my dad. Bears are my new daddy. And they freaking eat him.
Well, one thing we should point out too is consistent throughout the Alien series is the winged sun disk of Pharaoh. This comes up all throughout. It's the symbol of the Nostromo, which is the ship that Ripley is originally on. It comes up as the Wayland, part of the Wayland-Yutani logo, right, which is the winged disc of Horus. And that has reference to, of course, the mysteries of Egypt, the ancient mysteries. And I think what we're supposed to think is that the mysteries of ancient Egypt, just like all the other mysteries in an Eric von Daniken style, thing that you were mentioning, right, with the stele, and they actually have a stele, and that, if you don't know what a stele is, right, so Crowley, right, he talks about, there's a stele of revealing where the entity of Iowa spoke to him. It's basically an Egyptian version of an icon, right? So that's the stele of revealing that spoke to Crowley, supposedly, that told him the book of the law and all this stuff, right? And so the point is that the mysteries of this universe just happen to be the same as the mysteries of Egypt, the mysteries of Crowley, and the mysteries of Eric von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods baloney, right? And the idea is that our creators, or all the ancient religions, are pointing to the fact that we were seeded by these aliens, and man's quest to achieve scientific knowledge and knowledge of the universe is his Promethean drive to find his creator. And then when he finds his creator, he's not happy. And then he must commit the, as you said, Nietzschean idea of deicide. He must then try to kill his creator.
Yeah.
Extremely Luciferian.
Right. Well, and then David, right? His name kind of being, David's almost, his character is actually referencing Christ in certain ways, right? Being,
well, there's
created.
The Wayland guy at the beginning, he actually appears to own the David, the sculpture.
Yes. And then isn't there a line about David being perfect?
Yeah,
He's referenced as being near perfect. So he represents the perfect man, man's perfection. He is kind of the Christ figure in this film, but then he ends up being a completely satanic murderer, and slaying his creators, and then going and committing genocide in Alien Covenant against this No, they're not like engineers, but they're like in between engineers and humans, right?
Yep,
Like there's like a
exactly.
hybrid race, like this along the evolutionary ladder between humans and engineers. There's this other race on this planet, which is not paradise, right? It's another planet,
Right.
presumably that he goes to in the giant Ouroboros ship, which is the snake swallowing its tail. Ship's shaped like an Ouroboros, and then that kind of idea of creation eating itself, death coming from life, and creators making a creation that then kills then and usurps the throne, which is a pagan concept, and all the
Yeah,
pagan
perpetual
pantheons,
revolution based on perpetual cycles of nature.
right? Which when you look at the pagan pantheons, and they all have this idea of the son usurping the throne of the father, right? Which
Well,
is
the whole theology
version.
of Crowley is storm the gates of heaven and overthrow God and enthrone man.
Yes, yeah. So it's storming heaven, which is a line from the second Blade Runner that Ridley Scott
Also
didn't
from
write.
Crowley, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We'll storm heaven. We'll create a new nine, and the universes do kind of connect. Like there are some Easter eggs in Blade Runner 2049,
good
where you
point.
see like,
Right.
yeah, you do see an engineer in the like. It looks like they have some engineers style body that they're trying to do something with in
Well,
that film.
one neat point that I just noticed this time around, and I might have mentioned it back when we covered Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection, was did you notice that the companies that go into the future and supposedly take us into space are private corporations? So there's no more NASA, right? There's
Yeah.
just the corporations.
BlackRock.
Wayland Yutani, the right, that's who takes us into
Tyrell Corporation is in Blade
Tyrell,
Runner.
exactly. So what runs the future, what brings this, the space flights, which again, here we are nowadays, no more NASA really. Everybody thinks, oh, it's Elon, dude. It's Virgin Atlantic, man. Richard Branson, Elon. They're gonna take us to Mars, dude.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny, and just the way that the Blade Runner universe kind of connects with the Alien universe in certain ways is interesting. They kind of both came from the same Gnostic perspective, and
Right.
there are little references there. Like in Blade Runner, they do talk about using the androids for interstellar travel and for work, interplanetary travel and colonization. They talk about the colonies, and what we're looking at with the Alien franchise are the colonizers,
Colonies,
the colonists. They and they're all corporate. It's all corporate. But you'd almost expect like Coca-Cola and stuff, like little Coca-Cola cans and stuff for the
Well,
movie studios.
ironically, if you get a chance to watch the fourth Alien, Alien Resurrection, what's funny about that one is guess who runs and owns the space company in the year 2500 that's taking everybody to the other planets. So the Wayland Corporation is long gone and they've been bought out. Guess who they're bought out by?
Is it Coke or
It's
like
Walmart.
Ford? Oh my!
I thought that was hilarious. That so the famous the French director Jean-Pierre Jeunet, he actually put Walmart in there. I think he wrote the screenplay too. But that one gets really weird. Like it goes off in this artsy, weird way. Alien Resurrection. I actually think it's pretty good. It's not that bad. But
Yeah, I don't think I've seen Alien Resurrection.
it's not as bad as people make it out to be. But anyway, so back to this. One thing that we should mention too, as I know we kind of hinted at, is that this is totally a Darwinian universe. It's like there is no purpose. It's a dysteleological universe. Purpose is just random and chaotic, and beings, entities, life has no meaning. It just is or is not. And it just kind of springs out of nowhere, and it can turn into something else. Right? So this universe is totally nihilistic and chaotic, and I think that's connected to why there's a consistent presentation throughout the whole series that, like, is life really valuable, or is it just a mutation that's just as relevant as death?
Yeah. Or is it just something that should be wiped out?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the engineers are right.
Yeah. Well, David seems to come to that conclusion, and we don't really understand what the engineers wanted to do, right? Like it's presumed that they wanted to wipe out humanity. So assuming that that's the case, we don't know if it's like if they're just experimenting and the experiment went wrong, or if I don't know, like maybe it seems like what David's interpretation is though is that he needs to become the bringer of death, right? He needs to destroy all of this, and he has this idea of being the superior being, right? Like they walk through in not the second one, the first one, Prometheus, they walk into the place where the space jockey and the people are, the room, the control room of the ship, and he says, they are clearly a superior being. And I think in the second one, he's talking to the new one, like the new David model, which he ends up having like a clash with.
Right.
And
Walter. Yeah.
Walter. So he's talking to Walter, and he says, like, I realized I was superior to my father.
Well, this is another consistent theme of the father or creator God being the one that you need to overthrow. So if you remember, that was the meaning of the sequence when Charlize Theron in Prometheus is like bowing before her father Wayland in that weird erotic incestuous hinted scene. Do you remember that in Prometheus?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Like, well, I only learned it from you, father. Right, and so we get the idea that he has violated and messed with her, and she hates him, and so she even says, "Doesn't everybody want to kill their father?" Charlize Theron says that, right? And then
is she a robot? Is the question? Is she a cyborg?
Well, either way, the point is right. Either way, yeah. It's just, I think, highlighting that throughout the whole Alien story narrative.
Yeah, but if your dad had that bad of a makeup job to make him look old, like, you could totally tell that dude, that's like a 40-year-old man.
This Guy Pearce like wearing an old mask. It's like,
like, why don't you just get a real old person? There's no reason to have this guy with an old mask. I would also want to take him out if I was. To be fair, he's ugly. You see his feet? Why they have to show his feet? Gross ass old feet. Quentin Tarantino clip of them feet.
Are you fetus? Don't be fetus, dude. There's nothing wrong. All feet are equal.
Okay. All right. Those were some gross feet. Oh, man, equal to my feet. But yeah, no, you're right. You're right. The killing the father motif is same with Blade Runner, right? You know, I want more life. I want more.
Roy
life.
Batty wants to kill. I always go blank on his name.
His name, Tyrell.
Tyrell, his creator, exactly.
Well, and then it's also, that kind of shows just how actually shitty and lazy these movies are, because you're just rehashing the same things you did.
Well, isn't it interesting? Yeah, like why can Hollywood only present the Gnostic cosmology, literally all over and over? In fact, in Blade Runner, there's that important quote. Roy Batty quotes William Blake, and William Blake was the famous Hermeticist Gnostic. Right, who did all those weird paintings, and he wrote that poem about the orc and the rebel angels and all this stuff, and that's what fiery the flame of orc or whatever it is. Roy Batty says he's quoting William Blake. So again, we know that they're always just drawing from the Gnostic cosmology. It's almost like they don't have anything else. Like that's the only. If you don't have the Christian paradigm, it's almost like by default, all of the other paradigms just sort of default to Gnosticism.
Isn't that weird? Even Protestantism sort of ends up almost in similar grounds and resulting in this, the knowledge. If we just figure out how to interpret the phenomenon or interpret scriptures on our own, through our own intellect, we can have salvation.
Yes, salvation through gnosis, and that's in fact why the ideal here is the Prometheus is the ship of scientists, right? That's our new saviors, is the people we're gonna have a floating ship of science gods, and then they'll evolve to the next level. And the only reason that the engineers, right, evolve to whatever level they're at is through their use of science, and that actually came up in one of the versions of the screenplay, is that the humans have not evolved to be engineers, and even that is a Masonic concept, right? God as an engineer, not as a creator.
Exactly. A great architect, the engineer.
Right, because engineers and architects work with pre-existing eternal matter in the ancient Aristotelian and pagan paradigm. Only the biblical system has creation ex nihilo, out of nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Like in the beginning of this, the creation myth, creation already exists, but the architects, the engineers are just messing with it. They're tinkering with it. They're messing with the genetic code, mixing themselves with it. The archons mixing themselves with the created matter in order to create animate life. And it's and it really only results in more of the cycle of life eating life.
Yes.
And death and life. And And of course, everybody in the film is seeking gnosis, right? Like
Right. Salvation via gnosis, knowledge.
right. Like when David says to Wayland, he says, "You seek your creator. I am looking at mine. I will serve you. Yet you are human. You will die. I will not."